For this Principles Update, we're talking about the European Union referendum, which, as you know, will take place on June the 23rd. You may also know from my previous communications on the subject that I have indicated that from the perspective of the university, there are significant advantages to remaining in the European Union. But I've also indicated that we will all make a personal decision about how to vote on the 23rd of May, bearing in mind a variety of factors, including, but not relating only, to the benefits to the university. So there are wider issues to consider. And so it's helpful that today I'm joined by Dr. Paul Copeland, who is Senior Lecturer in the School of Politics and International Relations and Director of our Centre for European Research, and therefore brings particular expertise on the range of issues we need to consider. So Paul, I wonder whether you would outline for us some of the key issues that you see should be influencing this debate, as opposed to perhaps to the rather shouty arguments that are taking place.
So the interesting thing about the campaign so far is that it's been dominated by two topics. One is the economy and the other one is immigration. And it's basically claim and counterclaim and who can shout the loudest. But there are other broader issues that should be considered. The first of those issues is with respect to workers' rights and the workers' rights that British citizens get from the EU. The second of those relates to the free movement of British citizens around the EU. And the third of those relates to sovereignty and the issues are around how much sovereignty the UK has in or outside of the EU.
The issue of sovereignty seems to me, in particular, an area where there is real scope for genuine academic contributions to the debate.
Absolutely. So sovereignty refers to the ability of an EU member state to determine its own policies. And the academic literature has something really valuable to say here. The literature claims that European integration is a regional form of globalization. So it's very much symptomatic of what goes on within the global economy. So if the UK leaves the EU, it's very questionable how much sovereignty it will regain, as it were, because it's leaving a regional organisation that is essentially a form of globalisation to then take part in a globalised world.
Paul, one of the other issues that you highlighted was the question of workers' rights. Can you elaborate for us on some of the key issues in that area?
Absolutely. UK workers have benefited significantly from EU legislation in employment policy, including issues such as maternity and paternity rights, annual leave, and the treatment of temporary agency workers. This is another issue that hasn't been given sufficient coverage in the referendum campaign, but it's important because should the UK leave the EU, we simply don't know what will happen to those rights.
And Paul, you also mentioned the issue of the free movement of people within the European Union. Can you elaborate on the significance of that for us?
So the debate so far has very much focused on the free movement of individuals from the perspective of citizens from other EU member states coming to live and work within the UK. But what hasn't been discussed is the advantage that the UK has, or UK citizens have, in terms of being able to either work in another EU member state or visit on a temporary basis for a holiday. And so this could have profound implications on things that we take for granted.
What even this short debate suggests to me is that there's a real role for universities in informing this debate based on underlying and rigorous academic research, which we then need to transmit in a variety of ways to both our own community and indeed to a wider audience.
That's right. At Queen Mary, both the Mile End Institute and the Centre for European Research have a series of events on the referendum running throughout June, so be sure to check their website.
Well, thanks, Paul. This has been a useful conversation emphasising what universities can contribute to this debate. I welcome, as always, input from the wider Queen Mary community to this discussion. But the most important message, as before, is please exercise your right to vote on June the 23rd.